What is up, guys? Welcome back to the SmeshCast. It is Smesh Sunday. We are fresh off the fights. My God, UFC 259. Izzy Adesanya taking on Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz successfully defending his belt with a unanimous decision win. What a night of fights! 3 title fights, and they all lived up in some way. Maybe not quite as hype as they were coming in, but they were good fights. It was a great night of fights overall.
Yeah. I mean, it really it's interesting that the main event. I mean, I still think the main card was great just for how much fuckery went on and how much it's given us to talk about. But really, the shining stars of the night were the early prelims and the prelim fighters. Every single fight on the early prelims, there was a finish,
and Amanda Nunes.
Oh yes, and Amanda Nunes was always a star, but you know what? She gets all the credit. She gets all the credit she needs. And the real credit goes to these early prelims tonight. Absolutely stellar time watching those. We had a great moment that I just want to briefly go over before we get into the big fights. That fucking woman beating shit. Did you guys see that? That's
I heard it after the fact. I didn't actually see it. I saw it.
Okay, I saw it. Okay, so I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she was sitting there, and I couldn't tell what he was saying. We thought that
for the record, for the audience, this is Tim Elliott against Jordan Espinoza.
Yes.
A bit of context.
Right.
Tim Elliott after the fight calls Jordan Espinoza a wife beater or something along those lines.
No. So what happened? So what happened was he was talking shit. Tim Elliott was dominating this entire fight. He was on top of Espinoza, and he was raining down some ground and pound, and he was talking shit to him. And we thought we heard him say something like, oh, what are you, a woman? Or something like that, while he's like hitting him. And we were like, okay, that's a fucking weird thing to say. But no, then turns out what he said was like, I heard you like to beat women, and he started saying that he got messages from someone on Instagram, and he was just beating. So this is all alleged. We don't know any truth to this. Espinoza didn't deny anything. He said you don't know the full story, which is an interesting thing to say. But I like the narrative, and it's very funny for someone to beat a woman and then get fucking the shit beaten out of them by a fighter as revenge. I find that to be a very compelling story. So that we're just going to say this is all alleged, and we don't know what's true, but it is what it is.
Tim Elliott is not the first one to do this, by the way. This is actually, I've actually seen this is a bit of a trend I see across the UFC. A lot of the time, you see a lot of these UFC fighters will actually call out a fighter and say, I want to fight him because I hear he likes to beat women. I want to fuck this guy up. So I heard Derek Lewis said that. Derek Lewis said this once. I remember he had a classic line where he said, oh, he calls himself a man, but he likes to put his hands on women. And then he beat the shit out of the guy. I think, I forget who it was. Juan, what's the heavyweight? Juan something? Has a bit of an afro. Anyway, he young guy.
Look, what are we? We're not fucking Ariel Helwani over here. Listen, we can't have all the fucking information all at once.
He tried to call out Greg Hardy, try to fight him because we all know Greg Hardy's background. I mean, this is not something that is unheard of in the UFC, and you got to respect these guys. A lot of these guys have really, really, really strong. I mean, you think of a UFC fighter as a lot of these people think that these are violent people, and some of them are. But a lot of these guys have actually were raised by women, raised by their mothers or sisters. You look at Dustin Poirier as an example, has really, really strong relationships. He said he was raised by women, and that's who he respects most. And anyone that disrespects women, they want to come and fuck them up. It's actually kind of nice to see.
Yeah, if it's true, you love to see it. And in either case, guy gets dominated in there. I'm happy with that. You love to see that too. What's interesting, what I was thinking, let's say that so clearly there's something there to this story, because he didn't say he wasn't confused, didn't say it wasn't true. He said, you don't know the whole story. So let's say there's some roundabout interesting way where there is a story here that something happened, but he's not in the wrong, or I don't know, it was something that we don't know is a variable here. How much that's got to fuck with your head when you're in there to get called out on some fucking shit in your personal life that you think is buried and gone,
caught off guard,
and just that's got, and you're getting beaten up while you're doing it. That's got to be it. You give up. You just want to go home at that point and just lock yourself away. So that was a brutal, very real moment that happened tonight, and it was it really added to the entertainment.
It was, but
value.
let's not take our eyes off the real stories, right? This was a pay-per-view card with 3 title fights. Let's spend our time on the title fights, really.
Let's do it.
Obviously, let's start off with Jan Blachowicz, Izzy Adesanya. Jan Blachowicz gets a unanimous decision win. Really, honestly, I didn't necessarily agree with the scorecards. I did agree that Jan won. I did give the fight to Jan at the end of the day. But to give him 4-1 with one of those rounds being a 10-8 round, I do not agree with.
Yeah, totally disagree.
Yeah.
I scored it. First round, I thought Izzy won. Second round was close, but I edged Jan. But I think that's the real questionable round. I think you could really, if you wanted to make an argument for Izzy, you could. I still do think Jan won it, but you couldn't make an argument for Izzy. Third round was Izzy.
Yep.
Fourth and fifth were Jan. But the reason that the fourth and fifth were Jan really just because of that takedown. And if I'm being honest, I thought Izzy was winning the round before Jan took him down. In both those rounds, especially the fifth, he was putting it on Jan. He was catching him really well. You got Jan biting on the feints the entire fight from the very first round until the very fifth round. Jan was biting on all those feints. It's just that Izzy didn't have quite enough pop, quite enough threat to be able to actually dissuade him from throwing back at all. Wasn't able to really damage him. And when he got taken down, he was just too small. Didn't quite have the technical prowess to stand up against a bigger, stronger guy, and ended up losing a decision.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I think that Izzy did a little more damage than he let on. I mean, Jan himself said after the fight, the most shocking thing was how hard Izzy hit. He expected him to be fast and weak, and instead he was a little slower than he thought, but much stronger than he thought. So I think that was causing damage. I think that Jan is tough as it gets. I think that he you're not going to see this guy. If he's hurt, you're not going to know it. This man is cold-blooded. From everything we've seen in the last week really of hype for this, he's cold-blooded.
Yeah. So unless he's like really hurt, like if he's hurt, like, obviously, like if he got knocked out against Thiago Santos, like you're gonna know if you're getting knocked out. But yes, what you're getting at is true. I agree.
But Jan, you really can't compliment his striking here enough. He, people seem to forget this man was he's a Muay Thai world champion. This man can throw his hands. And he can throw his hands real fucking hard. I think it is a bit of a testament to Izzy's skill that he didn't get finished. He didn't get knocked out, unlike every single one of Jan's like last 4 opponents. They got KO'd by him. Izzy defensively on the feet, very sound, very sound. He looked better against Jan than anyone else that Jan has come up against recently. But Jan is the king of light heavyweight. Izzy's the king of middleweight. The weight difference has absolutely played a humongous role. No matter what Izzy says, it absolutely did.
He said it did. He admitted.
He's kind of
initially
I think he seemed like he was not trying. He's a guy that doesn't want to make excuses. So I think he was trying to say like, no, that wasn't it. He was just the better guy tonight.
Well, no, he actually said on the ground. He said, yeah, it did play a role, but it wasn't the only thing. I could have had technique better to make it so I could have stood up anyway. However, yeah, that did play a bit of a role. It was a combination.
Yeah.
It always is.
Very graceful in defeat, which is very respectable. I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of people thought that he would be very
salty.
Salty, exactly. Yeah, but no, absolutely not. He handled it with grace. He'll go back to middleweight. He said, didn't he? If I'm not mistaken, did he not say that he'll be back at light heavyweight at some point?
He said he's not completely done with light heavyweight, but right now he's going to go back to middleweight.
Yeah, I think it's very possible for him to go back to light heavyweight. I think he just has to put the weight on properly and not just, it would have been very cool to see, him weigh in at like 199 pounds and just destroy Jan. But like the reality is that can't happen. And the 20 to 35 pounds that Jan had on him, like it made a difference. And so I certainly think he can do it. I mean, he fought heavyweight in kickboxing, but he just has to put the weight on properly.
I mean, it's also the takedown, right? And you can do this a lot more easily in kickboxing because the striking advantage when you're 185 pounds or 195 or 200 and a half pounds, I mean, you have enough power to knock anybody out. At the end of the day, you can face a 300-pound guy. You have enough power to knock him out. That's not necessarily true at 135 pounds, but at 185 or 200 pounds, it definitely is. It's just that the grappling is what makes a difference when you're on the bottom, especially, or when Jan was leaning on him against the cage. I mean, in the first couple rounds, actually, Izzy did well against Jan against the cage, right? Jan got the clinch a couple times, leaned on him, he got out of it. It's just that once he got him down, that's when it really made a difference. What was interesting is also the way that Jan approached the fight. I mean, Jan didn't throw takedowns early in the fight at all. It was really only in the 4th and 5th. But when he did, it was so well timed. It was so out of nowhere that it really got Izzy down. It was really, really well done. Something I wanted to mention quickly, Noah. I mean, you mentioned that all of Jan's past opponents have gotten knocked out, and you're right in the last few. What's really interesting about Jan is that this wasn't the case until the Luke Rockhold fight. You actually look at his record before the Luke Rockhold fight. I think he has 1 career stoppage. Every one of his wins were by decision. Then he knocks out Luke Rockhold. He knocks out Corey Anderson. He knocks out Dominic Reyes. Like, all of a sudden, he's knocking everyone out. And even more so, Jan Blachowicz is one of the best Cinderella stories in the UFC. And you look at Michael Bisping, and this is not the same as Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping, when he came into the UFC, he won the Ultimate Fighter, and he was pushed, and he almost got a title shot, and then he would lose. And he'd be pushed, almost get a title shot and keep on losing. And eventually he got his shot. Jan Blachowicz was never pushed. Jan Blachowicz comes into the UFC and he is 2-4 in his first 6. And this is a guy who, if we were watching, we don't mention this guy, right? This is one of the guys that we're not going to mention tonight on the prelim. This is one of the guys that we don't expect. He's going to get cut from the UFC. We don't even mention him on the podcast. This is not a guy who anyone looked at as anything serious. But he kept on working, he kept on improving, and step by step, he worked his way up. And all of a sudden, he sneakily becomes the champion, beats an undefeated, what we all on this podcast have said is the future best of all time. And he's just easily, not easily, but he's convincingly winning.
It was a decisive victory.
Decisively, exactly. It's just an amazing turnaround. And you really got to give, especially these young guys coming in that might take a couple losses early, you got to give them a chance because you never know what they're going to turn into.
Yeah, I mean, and he's pushing 38 years old, which is like, most fighters are done by the time they're 37 or 38. That's when their career is leaning towards the end. But he looks to be in his prime, and he's definitely got tons of great fights still left in him. So
he doesn't look 38.
No, not at all.
He looks young.
There's something in the water over there in Poland. It's just it's the benefit. It's the benefit of staying in good shape.
No, it's the noose, Noah. It's the noose.
It's the noose. The noose.
You know the noose story?
Yeah. Oh, do I know the noose story?
I think we've told it like 3 or 4 times on this already.
It's like I said, the man is cold-blooded. And I have, I don't want to say that any of us were disrespectful to him before this. I think that all of us as being like, fans that tune in and watch these fights every week, we know that Jan is, he, at a point, there was a time to, underestimate him, but now, by all means you cannot. And this absolutely cements it. This pushes Jan to like a next level position of just how good he is. What I really want to know, and I'd like to know what you guys' thoughts are on this. What does this do for the pound for pound rankings? Because Izzy, as it stands, is he's ranked number 3, whereas Jan Blachowicz is ranked number 14th. And to contextualize this, that means that Jan Blachowicz, pound for pound, before this night, was ranked below Francis Ngannou, below Robert Whittaker, below Justin Gaethje, below Petr Yan and Figueiredo, below Max Holloway, below Poirier. He's
Look, I'm
way
sorry,
down to
but
the bottom.
I agree with all that, especially coming into this fight. I agree with that 100%, though. I don't disagree with any of those statements. I do think he is a lower pound for pound than Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway. I'm sorry. However, that's not to say he's not going to get a boost from this. He definitely will. Now, when you compare him to Izzy, obviously he's a better fighter at 205 pounds, but that's not how this works, right? This is pound for pound. It's who is the best fighter at their natural weight class is kind of the idea of if they were the same weight, who would win? And I do still think I would rank Izzy ahead of him pound for pound, just not at 205.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't disagree with you. I think that Izzy's wins at middleweight are more convincing as, being the better fighter at that size. But rank 14 is downright disrespectful. It's downright
Coming
disrespectful.
into this, it wasn't. No, I don't
know, man. He put on a clinic on Dominic Reyes, who, arguably,
I don't know.
I believe beat John Jones.
Okay, who do you give me an argument for any of the guys that are above him in the rankings that he should be above them coming into this fight before this fight?
He should probably be. I think he should at the very least be above Whitaker and Gaethje.
Whitaker.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Whitaker is a former champion who's defended, who's only lost right. Like, think about Whitaker in the last 5 years,
and think about Jan, and think about who Jan's just finished in his last 4 fights, and then who he just and especially who he just beat now.
Whitaker was doing this as champion, right?
I mean,
he defended his belt
in terms
2 or
of
3 times, and
listen, we're talking current day. We're talking right now. Who's the pound for pound?
I'm talking about a week ago.
I'm sorry, you've lost me.
We have to come into I'm not saying right now. I'm saying coming into this fight, it was not disrespectful to rank him number 14 pound for pound. Before this fight happened, I do not think it's right to rank him above Whitaker.
I don't think it's downright disrespectful. I think it's a little disrespectful to have a world champion be that goddamn low after he's just getting finish after finish. Now, especially though, he moves up high. Where do you think he goes?
10?
Probably in that 10 mark. Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
I don't see much higher than 10.
I'm sure they'll rearrange it a bit, like Justin Gaethje and Whitaker, and will go down. Obviously, Jan will go down as well.
Do you think Jan goes down, or do you think Jan's off? What do you think? What do you think he goes on there?
Maybe to 15.
Oh, Jan might lose. Peter Yan might probably lose his pound for pound ranking, if I'm being honest. Maybe you'll get 15th. I think, honestly, if I'm being honest, kick Connor off. I don't know why Connor's on the top 15 pound for pound.
Listen, that's what makes sense. But is that going to happen? Of course not. They'll probably bump Jan off and still keep Connor at rank 15.
Honestly.
Where do you think among the current champions, where do you think that Jan Blachowicz should be? I'll read off the order for you right now. I'm going to skip out on Aljo because he is definitely not in that top pound for pound. But so in terms of the current champions on the pound for pound rankings, you've got Blachowicz is in last, and then Figueiredo, and then Volkanovski, Stipe, Usman, Adesanya, and then Khabib Masvidal.
I can't rank him ahead of any of those guys. Honestly, I can't.
I would rank him
any other champion
ahead of Figueiredo, I think.
Man, Figueiredo
or tied.
Maybe tied to Figueiredo. Maybe. I think Figueiredo's the only one you have an argument for, but Figueiredo's fucking scary, dude. And if he's able to beat Moreno, I don't know if I can see anybody else beating him. Even Askarov, I don't care. I don't think anyone beats Figueiredo except for maybe Moreno. That's again. Jan Blachowicz, yes, I think he's great, but I think he can beat anyone in the division. But I'm not in that state where I'm like, oh, no one can beat him. Whereas when I look at Usman, when I look at Figueiredo, when I look at Volkanovski, I'm like, wow, except for the Max Holloways of the world, who's also pound for pound king, I don't see anyone beating him.
It's also the case that look at all the other divisions; they're all stacked. The 205 pound division, it's a little stagnant. It's being built a little bit with Alexander Rakic and guys like that, but the level of competition is arguably a little bit higher in the other weight classes.
And that's what I'm saying. Is beating a Luke Rockhold, who's coming off a couple of years layoff, a Corey Anderson, who hasn't really ever fought for the belt or really done anything that spectacular, even though he is very good, and Dominic Reyes, who he almost beat John Jones, but he was undefeated. He was pretty green. He was 11 fights into his career. These are all amazing.
Don't come in here and disrespect Dominic Reyes like that, man.
Those are all amazing. Wait, let me finish. Let me finish before you yell. Are those the same?
Don't tell me not to yell.
True. Are those the same as beating Max Holloway? Is that the same as beating Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, and Colby Covington? Is that the same as beating Robert Whitaker, Paulo Costa, etc.? Beating DC and Ngannou. That's what Stipe's done. I don't I just can't compare those on the same level. As amazing as those wins are, those are wins that in other divisions earn you the title shots. And I agree, and they're impressive, but they aren't wins that put you in legendary status like the other wins, like a win over Ngannou, or a win over Max Holloway, or a win over Conor McGregor do.
Or a win over Adesanya.
But the context was Adesanya moving up. The context was Adesanya trying to become great. And it was almost like, okay, if he fails, he fails. Whereas it's not if someone challenges Adesanya as champion, then it becomes amazing. You know, it's not quite the same. It's still extremely impressive to beat him, but it's not the same.
So I think we're all pretty much in agreement about this pound for pound, because I agree with you that Jan isn't the most impressive of the champions in terms of pound for pound, but he's got to go up. You know,
he'll get
substantially after this.
Yeah,
all I got to say, he beat. At the end of the day, you know, you could say weight class this, weight class that. He beat the number 3 pound for pound fighter in the world. Say something.
Here's the real question. The only question I have, and I'm going to say my answer to this is yes. Do you guys now push Kamaru to 3 and Adesanya to 4?
Yes.
I think you do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kamaru just looks so good.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see, you know, I want to see how Tyron Woodley does next week, because that'll show, that'll really either age Kamaru's domination of him very well, or I'm not going to say poorly, but not so well.
I don't know.
That'll tell us a lot.
I think he's the one that broke him, right? I mean, if you look at before that fight, he was coming off the best win of his career against Till. And then all of a sudden he faces Kamaru and his whole thing, everything falls apart. I think it's almost a credit to Kamaru to be like, yeah, he fought Kamaru and he was never the same. But so you can argue, you can sell it both ways.
Yeah, but we'll see, because that win could age remarkably well if Tyron comes in next fight and shows us a performance like, you know, vintage Tyron.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But I think it was, you make a good point. Usman, I think, goes to number 3, and Adesanya, I'm sorry to say, down to 4 until next time.
Well, I think we have spoken about this main event quite a bit. I think it was a great main event.
Oh yeah. Real quick shout out to the dog shit commentary last night.
Yeah, I will say it was. Yeah, I know they were way too pro Izzy. They were like, "Oh, Izzy didn't win this easy." And yes, again, I think I guess last point, in a striking matchup in terms of who's actually leading, who's in control striking wise, it was actually Izzy. Jan was biting on all those feints. He was controlling Jan in that way.
But was he doing anything with those feints?
But he wasn't actually getting enough damage. I think if this was a pure kickboxing match,
he got outstruck. I think every round. Izzy got outstruck.
Numerically, I think he did.
The shots, but the shots he lit was like those body shots were strong.
Right. It was just like
Izzy's tough as nails.
He had control.
He's durable as anyone else.
Yeah.
But he took a lot of hits there, and you know, at a certain point, you know, I stopped listening to the commentary and I started thinking, wait a minute, Jan's winning. Jan is getting the better of these exchanges. So, you know, I don't know if they were told that they needed to talk and, you know, hype up Izzy, and they had the whole storyline set out. I don't know what was going on, but and then after the fight, you hear Joe interviewing Jan and getting some shit wrong about him, being like, you used to fight at middleweight and then you moved up. And Jan's like, no, that's not true actually at all. And
yeah, no, everyone seems to think a bit about Jan for some reason. I think it's because he fought Santos, Chapter, and Santos did.
I was thinking Jacare.
And Jacare also did, right? He's fought a couple guys who have, but he actually hasn't himself.
I thought he fought at middleweight as well. I was kind of confused, but I guess not.
Very weird. Very weird.
Anyway.
Just another thing to add to the pile tonight, I guess, of weird shit.
On to the co-main event. This was not a weird fight. This is exactly what we expected. Amanda Nunes just walking all over Megan Anderson. She walks in there, by far the smaller fighter. She looked tiny compared to Megan, but she walked her down with that Amanda Nunes confidence in the same way she walked down Cyborg with those huge overhand rights. The same one she knocked Cyborg out. She almost knocked Megan out twice with that overhand right. Megan looked dazed and scared. And then she takes her down. Oh no, Megan tries to take her down. Everyone knows you don't take Amanda Nunes down, especially when you're a striker.
Yeah, that's it.
Panicked,
that's a last
tried to take her down, ended up on her own back, And then, man, that position that Amanda had her in at the end of the fight, where she had her in a triangle choke on her head, she has an arm bar. In that position, she has three choices. She can keep squeezing the legs and choke her unconscious. She can break her arm, or she can just pound her out while her head is isolated there. She has full and utter control over whatever she wants to do to Megan Anderson. She's just so good.
Yeah.
There's no one like her.
She's the best female fighter of all
She's
time.
the best.
Like looking at all the women's rankings, like I would put all the women here, and then Valentina here, and then like Amanda here. Like she's just that many levels above everybody else, and like nobody's gonna challenge her. Like it would take years to see somebody rise up at the rankings and offer her a good challenge. But like I say, keep lining them up and let's make her like a multi-millionaire. I'm happy to see her win as much as she can and get as much money as she can.
Yeah, no complaints. No complaints here. There's really not much to analyze otherwise. This is how it goes. I saw someone comment on something last night being like, this is my first time watching Amanda Nunes like a live fight. Does it always go like this? Is this surprising? And it's like, no, not really. I mean, her last two fights were like a little more drawn out, decision victories, but otherwise, this is how it goes. She's this dominant constantly, all the time. She's just, it's remarkable. It's something else. The deer in headlights thing happened again. You get hit by her, and it seems like, these women get hit and they're just thinking, how the fuck did she hit me that hard? That's not fair. And it's something else. It's something else. And, as predictable as her fights are, I'm going to watch every single one of them.
Absolutely. It's like the Khabib effect. It's like, I just want to see how amazing this person is at martial arts. It just doesn't make sense. And I just want to watch them do their thing. It's beautiful to watch. She doesn't even care about fighting people anymore. She just likes beating people up. As they say, who's next? Who cares? Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. It's the UFC's problem, and it's the other women in the division's problem. It's not her problem. Yeah. Maybe one day they'll crack the code, but honestly, with her, the code is not so complicated. She's stronger than you. She's more powerful than you. She can leverage that.
And she's more skilled than you. No, let's put that first. She is stronger. She is more powerful, but beyond that, she can be weaker and smaller than you. She is way more skilled than you, unless maybe Valentina Shevchenko.
As a well-rounded fighter. Yeah, there's been times where like GDR gave her some.
GDR is one of the best kickboxers in the world.
Yes, absolutely. So there are areas where she can have trouble, but she's so well-rounded that she can just adjust her game on the fly, and it's something that the division is going to eventually have to have an answer for and evolve to.
No, it won't. They just wait 5 more years. Let her retire and get out of here. Get out of their hair so they can actually have a chance of winning a belt for once in their life. When they don't have freaking Cyborg and Amanda Nunes guarding the 135, 145 pound belts. It's not fair to anybody.
Fair ain't nothing,
Well, actually, I think that's a very good. Speaking of fair, I think that's a very good transition to our very, very, very strange.
Yes.
Featured bout of the night, our first title bout of the night.
Very strange. I would argue the strangest title fight, probably since like BJ Penn accused like GSP of fucking vaselining himself, and GSP said he paid a guy to kiss him on the mouth.
Or John Jones, Anthony Smith. That was also a little bit strange. But again, so what happened here? Aljamain Sterling defeats Peter Yan to win the 135 belt via disqualification. So in this fight, honestly, Yan was taking over. I thought that he was winning 2-1 on in terms of the 3 rounds that were completed, but he was well on his way to winning the 4th. And Aljo, even Dana White said it himself, Aljo was breaking. We were watching Aljo break in front of us. He looked desperate to land his shots. He looked like he was panicking. He looked like he was trying too hard. I think that was a great piece of commentary to give him some respect. I do think that what DC and Joe Rogan said, where he looks desperate, he looks like he's forcing, he's trying too hard to throw the shots, not flowing. I think that was a very good point, and it doesn't work against a guy as composed as Yan. Yan was winning that fight, absolutely, and was going to win it, in my opinion. And Aljo was honestly resting on his knees, if I'm going to be honest here.
He couldn't stand up if he wanted to.
He could, but he was tired.
Pushing down on his head. Too much. He was exhausted.
But he was exhausted.
He was exhausted.
He was beaten and exhausted, and then Jan knees him in the head while he's down. Honestly, probably put him partly out, and that ended the fight. Disqualification.
Yeah. It's
such a shame.
There's been some controversy online, and I've seen a lot of dum-dums out there, I'm going to call them, accusing Aljo of faking it, or saying like, oh, he shouldn't get the belt for losing and all this shit. And listen, where the belt goes, whatever happens, listen, that is what it is. Whoever wins the fight is the champion. That's the deal. If you both make weight, a champion, like in terms of like, should Jan have been stripped or not? It's a no fucking brainer for a champion to do such a blatant, to break the rules like that in one of the worst ways that you can in the UFC, other than just punching someone right in the dick. It was brutal. Let me, as I was watching him on the ground, were you guys all also thinking, don't do it, Jan? I know what you're thinking. Don't do it.
Oh, really?
It's real easy, but don't do it.
Yeah, no, I thought that too a couple seconds before.
I mean, I just didn't expect. I whenever they're there, I'm like, wow, I see that knee, but they're not going to do it. I always think they're not going to do it. They're not that dumb. When it happened, I'm just like, no. I knew immediately that what was going to happen there, because I knew how hard he got hit. You can see Aljo, because you look at Aljo and like, what are you supposed to do if you're him? Like, you're right. I feel
it's lose-lose.
I feel
he
so
should
bad
not
for
have
him.
a choice. He should have no choice in the matter.
Because he clearly couldn't continue. And I know that they're calling him out for acting. Fuck that. No. He was fucked up.
And he wanted to. He was upset. You could hear him saying shit on the ground like, this isn't how I wanted this to happen. This isn't how I wanted it to go. Like, this is, like, do you think that he wants to, like, him winning the belt is, I don't think it's, maybe in the long run it'll be worth it, but like for him in the moment, it's not worth like all the crazy scrutiny he's gonna have from like his peers.
But he was going to get knocked out in a second if he didn't. If he kept going, he would have been knocked out.
Yeah, that's why it's lose-lose.
100%.
Because he would have lost if he stood up. There's no way. Like, Jan would have knocked him out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Jan would have knocked him out, or he would have just, somehow he would have been able to skate by and get to the
they take away a point. Who cares? It's not a 1 point. That's a 2-pointer.
You can say, and people can and will and are saying that, well, Jan was winning anyways. He was well on his way. He was probably going to finish that round anyways. Sure. But guess what? Doesn't matter anymore. Fuck. In the 5th round, Aljo could have turned around, got him on the ground, and got a crazy choke with 2 seconds left.
So I have a question.
We'll never know because Jan cheated blatantly.
So here's a question. So when I'm thinking about this now, I'm actually comparing this to another very, very famous disqualification in which someone was winning very easily. I mean, maybe not as easily. Actually, I would say more easily than this for sure. And then was then disqualified for illegal blow. And that is John Jones getting disqualified for his 12-6 elbow. And we have said, honestly, I have said this in the past. I will say it again. I kind of see that as a no contest, not a disqualification. I agree he shouldn't win that fight because he did illegally strike him, but he was dominating that fight and he was going to win, and he didn't mean to hit him with that specifically. I mean, he went to just hurt him, and he didn't mean to do something illegal on purpose. I think he should lose his win but not get a loss. Mm-hmm. And honestly, this is the same situation.
So I
don't know.
Disagree. I think that there's the key difference here.
Okay.
Is that for the elbows, it's just a matter of the angle. If and you could be like throwing totally good elbows and then accidentally miss angle one, and that's it. For knee on the ground to the head, that's it. There's no other nuance there. There's nothing. There's no like room where it's like I didn't mean, like there's no room for that.
There is actually, by the way, because there is a thing where you see guys in that position, and then when they stand up and get their knee off the ground, the guys try to time it.
Guess what? That didn't happen.
Try to think of.
That didn't happen, and it wasn't even beginning to happen. And he was on the ground for a good I see what you're saying.
But the
here,
12-6 elbow is the same. You can argue the same.
Some good points, but I think that contextually, I think it's much easier to make the elbowing mistake than it is to make that kneeing mistake.
It is, but in terms of the rules, it's the same. That's why I'm like, you ended the fight with an illegal blow to the head.
But
and because of that illegal blow, the opponent was not able to continue, and so you got disqualified and you got a loss. That's at the end of the day, what that illegal blow shouldn't really matter, in my opinion. Maybe how hard it was and how much effect, but which
was Jones defending a belt during that DQ?
No, but it's a DQ. No, he's not. But it's a DQ all the same.
So that also plays a bit of a, like, I mean, just to be like, this is a subjective thing. A champion can't be doing this. This is not something that like a champion can't do. This.
Still
you lose your status.
Should it be a no contest or a disqualification? Is the question.
Disqualification.
DQ. It was so blatant. It was so intentional. Even if not knowing, which for one thing, if you don't know, you have no reason to be a champion. I mean, you could be a great fighter, but you don't know the fucking rules of the sport you're in. So, like, what was he thinking? And then, do you guys hear the stuff that Khabib was supposedly saying about his corner?
Yeah, the corner. He was asking the corner, do I hit him now? Do I hit him now? And his corner said, yes, hit him now. And then he did, and then he got disqualified.
So apparently some of the corner was yelling in English, punch him, and then someone else's corner was yelling in Russian, just said, hit him. And, I mean, either way, unless someone, like, just blatantly said throw a knee, which even then, Jan still holds most of the blame there. Jan, like...
It just sucks.
How could you make such a devastating mistake? And it's like, and I like Jan. I love watching him fight, and he was winning that fight. I wanted Aljo to win from the beginning, sure, but it was very clear that other than that first round, the volume was great, and those flying knees were beautiful. But Jan has some crazy fuck you power, and he knocks mans out.
I was gonna say, Jan honestly has probably the best Muay Thai I've ever seen in the UFC. Mm-hmm. Jan's pure Muay Thai, his stance, the way he's able, first of all, his boxing is just so crisp and striking, but his kicks, the way he throws that switch kick, the way he throws that back power shot to the body is so quick, and he comes right back into his stance so perfectly, just like perfect Muay Thai. All those leg sweeps were insane. Those, like, when you if you ever watch, I don't know if you guys like watching Muay Thai training videos. When you watch these insanely high level Muay Thai trainers at Tiger Muay Thai, which is where Jan trains, training with these guys, and they're hitting pads, and then the trainer will just sweep their legs out effortlessly, and they'll go down hard. They'll say, get back up, and they'll do it again, and they'll sweep their legs out halfway through their combinations. They'll get up, get back up. Jan looked like the Muay Thai trainer, except he was dodging the punches, hitting back, and then finishing off with his own leg sweep. It was just so beautiful, so dominant, and just so effortless. It was amazing.
Those sweeps were clean. They were
so good, and so many. Good. He had no answer for them.
And the whole narrative was, once Aljo's got you on the ground, he'll tie you up. Aljo could barely get him onto the ground. Jan effortlessly got him onto the ground. Listen, rematch, Jan wins. I think that Aljo could make adjustments, but I don't know that he can withstand that power once he really gets in there. And especially if he can just so effortlessly sweep them. If that stays the same, then not much Aljo can do. But right now, he's the champion. It's really not a good way that it happened. I'm sure he's not too pleased about it. But anyone who has, left this situation with a chip on their shoulder against Aljo can fuck off, basically. You're wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you that, like, I'd agree that I would definitely edge more towards Jan in a rematch. Aljo displayed, like, a very good performance in rounds 1 and 2. He clearly came out way too strong and then gassed in 3 and 4. And like you could tell, he was extremely sloppy in those later rounds, going for spinning attacks, and he was giving up his back consistently, and Jan kept grabbing him. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do you do? I don't know. You obviously have to do a rematch.
Jan, as we said, was a lot more effortless. I think it was just, as what Joe Rogan said, the word that he said was efficient, and I really agree with that. When Sterling was going for things, as we said, he was forcing it, and he looked like he was expending way more energy than he had to. It didn't look flowy. I think that if he's able to actually make that adjustment, I think actually is possible. It seems almost like a mental thing, if I'm being honest, coming into it, where you're coming into the title fight and you really think you got to put it all out there. And he did it. He came at it with the wrong approach, which I think can be changed, which is the one thing I will give to Sterling. But I think what the really big difference maker was the takedowns, and the fact that when Aljo went for the takedowns, he had to put so much effort because he's going for a wrestling style takedown where you have to go double leg or single leg. You lift the guy up, you pull him around, you pull him out. They're high energy takedowns. When Jan got a takedown, it was just a mess with his balance and trip him, sweep his leg out. It wasn't
he did slam him once. He did slam Aljo on his head.
But for the most part, yeah, he did. That is true. But for the most part, he didn't have to go and put those high energy takedowns in. It was a lot more low energy, which I think, again, really helped him in the third and fourth rounds where he looked a lot more fresh than Aljo did.
The other thing I was going to say on my last point was like, they have to do a rematch. But I mean, if I'm Aljo, I'm taking as much time as I can. That's a brutal knockout. And like, I'm at least taking 4 months.
For sure. You should.
Hey, he's the champion. He can do what he wants.
Yeah. The only thing is I'm not sure what the UFC wants to do if they're going to, press him to come back as quickly as he can, which I'm sure they will.
I mean, it reminds me of the Joseph Benavidez Davidson Figueiredo fight, right? Where Joey B should not have come back so fast in that rematch for a title, for a belt, that the other guy beat him, but there were some questionable circumstances like that missing weight and the head bump.
Yep.
But when he comes back, he was not ready for that rematch. And you could see.
Yeah. Well, what a shame of a night. Hey, this raises a question for me. Just how good is Jose Aldo right now? Because he took for 3 rounds. He really gave it to Jan, and really
we'll find out in his next fight.
Only towards the end was it when he really started to get dominated. So so bantamweight. I love you guys.
It's a great division.
You guys are really putting it on. Even when you have even guys at the bottom of the rankings, everyone just looks like they could be the champion.
In fact, I would go as far as saying bantamweight is the second best division in the UFC, second to the 155-pound division, which is what we're going to talk about next. So at that 155-pound division, we had Islam Makhachev taking on Drew Dober. Islam really being that Dagestani future is what a lot of people think. Khabib is really pushing him as the future of the 155-pound division now that Khabib claims he is gone, and I think he is, and I'm not even going to go into that. Khabib's gone.
Someone asked Dana last night if he talked to Khabib tonight, and he said, "Oh, so how about September?" And Khabib just laughed. Khabib's not coming back. He's never coming back. That's it. It's done.
Fuck that conversation. I'm not even getting into it. Until we hear he's back, he's not back. Islam Makhachev against Drew Dober. Islam just with a dominant win. Drew Dober was knocking fools out coming into this fight. He was just putting work in, and he earned the shot against Islam. But Islam just has that Dagestani wrestling. There's something about that Dagestani wrestling where they just have relentless control, relentless pressure. But I will say he's not Khabib. He's not. He isn't. He's really, really, really good, but he's not Khabib.
He isn't, but he does a damn good job.
He does a damn good job, but no one is Khabib. I hear, Chase Eldate. He's one of the guys on DC's high school team. He's a guy. He always brings Chase in. He's one of the state champion wrestlers, and he brings him into AKA to wrestle a lot of these Dagestani dudes like Khabib. And I remember watching this video where he wrestled with Islam. He's like, oh my god, he's relentless pressure. He then wrestles with Khabib, and there's a little interview after. He's like, man, Islam was insane. I've never felt pressure like that before, but Khabib is something else. No one's like, it feels like everything I do, Khabib is 5 steps ahead. Khabib is just on another level.
Mm-hmm. Well, Khabib's they're both once in a lifetime,
once in a generation,
athletes, but Khabib is just on another level. But let's not talk too much about Khabib, and let's not take the moment away from Islam. Islam looked phenomenal out there tonight. He was dominant. The wrestling. Once he had him on the ground, and he slowly worked towards the cage. Watching the chess match as he slowly started to get that classic Dagestani handcuff and wrap up those legs. It's the same story with the Dagestanis. You know what they're going to do. There's nothing you can do to stop it. It's really something else. And it was great to see Islam hasn't been, he hasn't been around for a little while, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's great to see him in there and against a truly dangerous striker. Like the shots that were being thrown Dober were
throws heat.
powerful. He's a strong, powerful guy, and he looked pretty confident coming into things. He looked energetic. He looked excited. He was ready. But Khabib says that Islam is one of the 3 best guys in the division, and I've got no reason to doubt him at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was spectacular performance. Not much to say. I'm excited to see where he goes. There's some great matchups, and like. It kind of fulfills the desire for more, I guess, like Khabib-esque matchups. Like we want to see Khabib against Gaethje. I don't know.
Keep going, but no.
It scratches an itch slightly for me, not nearly to the same extent.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought you were going to say this is going to be Tony Khabib. Tony Makhachev is just as good as Tony Khabib, and I was going to throw you on the podcast, man.
I'm not saying it was going to be on the same level, but I want to say that I think it's still a competitive fight, and it would be exciting to watch.
It's still a good fight, but it's not Tony. It's not Tony Khabib. It's
for sure.
No.
Did you see Islam's back while he was squeezing Drew Dober?
That man's got muscles that I didn't even know existed.
That was insanity. I mean, he looks like a scrawny guy. And then he went with that squeeze. Oh my God. Also, speaking of being a little bigger, a little fluffy, I know we don't want to bring it back to him, but Khabib looked a little fluffy in there. He looked a little bit like Abdulmanap,
he's taken after DC in his retirement.
He looks like a cross between DC, Javier Mendez, and Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov.
And I say he's earned it.
He's earned it.
Yes.
You eat, big boy.
Certainly.
You eat. You earn that food.
Hell yeah. But
what's next?
Great fight.
What's next for Islam? I say I like some of the recommendations you guys have here. RDA could be a good matchup. It's coming off a big win over Paul Felder.
And they were scheduled to fight.
To fight. Dan Hooker, I want to see Dan take a little more time off. I don't think Dan is ready for Islam right now. I think it's a great matchup, but I want to give Dan some more time off personally. And I think that the top of the division, the Michael Chandlers, the Dustin Poiriers, the Charles Oliveira's, Islam's one fight behind them still.
Yeah,
I'd agree.
How about I wouldn't mind Islam and Dariush fighting to see which one of them gets a top 5er.
Dariush, I can see him fighting Gaethje, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you like to see those 2 fight? I would really like to see it.
I would like to see it, but I just feel like Dariush deserves maybe even a higher challenge still.
Yeah,
maybe. I feel like we're fucking both Dariush and Makhachev here by not giving either of them a guy that I think you're forcing them to take one more fight than I think they need to.
That's fair.
Looking at the lightweight rankings, I mean, like, honestly,
soft.
you can match anybody up with anybody. It's such a fun fight.
Would it be fucking rude? God, I really wish the rematch wasn't in the works because it would be really fucking cold-blooded to give Islam Conor. See what happens there.
They're doing Conor Poirier 3.
I know. I wish they weren't because I would be ecstatic.
Well, if they do, they're going to sell that big. Actually, I will say, if there's one thing that'll bring Khabib back is that if Conor beats Islam. If Conor beats Poirier, Islam wins 1 or 2 more, and then you do Conor Islam and Conor wins. Yeah.
All right, boys. Here's how we can get Khabib back in the octagon. So much exciting potential for movement in that division. Well, we're really coming into a great time for the UFC.
So speaking of coming into a great time, and we thought that coming into this pay-per-view that the first
great segue today. Great segue.
My segue is great. We thought coming into the pay-per-view we would have a perfect breakout fight to just set this pay-per-view on fire. We thought this first fight was going to go 1 minute or less, in my opinion, honestly. Thiago Santos, Alexander Rakic is just 2 big, powerful, scary, aggressive dudes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we see what we saw in the Gon Rosenstrike matchup, in the Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou matchup, and we kind of saw it here, where when you have 2 dangerous, heavy, big punchers, they kind of cancel each other out. They both have to be careful to not get caught, and they both end up being too careful, and no one really does so much. these guys had a perfect chance to maybe have a chance to maybe argue over Glover Teixeira that they maybe want to get a title shot. I don't think that they could have, even with a big win, but at least they would have put themselves in that conversation. And it was just not enough.
Mm-hmm.
It was a boring fight.
They were both a little bit too hesitant of each other. And something that the commentary was saying, and I think is true, is that Thiago has not looked the same after his surgery.
He hasn't.
No.
He's not able to throw kicks to the same extent. He usually chops up the lead leg a lot more, and he barely threw any calf kicks. And so, that's what 2 completely destroyed knee surgeries will do to you. So,
yeah,
it is what it is.
You really hate to see it. It's the reality of the sport, though. It's sometimes you get these situations that someone takes some damage and it's just too much, and especially on those legs, that's crucial. And he basically fought John Jones without missing a leg.
Yeah.
So
I will say
it's hard to speculate on where he goes from here.
So one of my favorite parts of that fight, though, was actually the post-fight interview. Joe Rogan, I have not seen him be this savage live on air before. It was low key, but it was savage. I don't know if you guys caught it. So Rakic in the post-fight interview was talking all about how, man, I want to fight for that belt. It's my dream. I really want that belt. Right? He has a whole long rant just talking about how much he wants to fight for the belt. He wants to have that shot next. He's ready. Da, 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 da. And then Joe Rogan tries to wrap up the interview, and he says, "Yeah, well, inevitably you'll get another top contender on the next one. I look forward to seeing you continue to work your way up the ladder." Right? So Rogan's just talking shit the whole fight about how he had a chance to push and get a title shot out of this, but he's being too timid. He's too timid. Da, da, da. And then he just sends him to hell in front of live on air. It was amazing. I love that.
And he had a good comment because they gave him his black belt in a fight.
Oh, the brown belt.
His brown belt, where
dumb.
no grappling was displayed whatsoever. And Rogan was like, they gave him his black belt? In a questioning
when
tone.
they gave Woodley his black belt for choking out Darren Till in a title match, that's perfect. But you don't give it on a guy for a striking affair.
I think it's kind of for show. I think it's a situation where he earned it, and it's just like, we're just gonna give it to you now. Yeah, you've already done what you need to earn the brown belt prior to the fight. This is just when you get, like, they knew before the fight, no matter what, if he wins, we're gonna give it to him. It's gonna be a big moment, and it would have been a bigger moment if it was like a spectacular fucking submission or something.
Yes,
but it wasn't. But they already had it planned out, so I do love to see it. I always love to see someone be awarded a belt in there. It really brings it back to the martial arts roots.
Yeah. Actually, Adam, I was going to ask you a question because I think you're a little bit more in touch with the jiu-jitsu world than Noah and I might be. So obviously it's a really, really huge deal whenever you get your belt, but not only when you get your belt, but also who gave you that belt, right? So when you say this guy's a black belt, you don't just say he's a black belt. You say he's a black belt under Henry Gracie, or he's a black belt under John Jacques Machado, whatever. So I've heard a bit that there's a bit of a thing. I don't know how true it is, that some guys want to be the one to give certain guy the belt. That way they get their name tied to that individual.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you saw, for example, Adesanya just got his purple belt a few weeks ago. Who was it? Oh man, I just had his name. Not Cordero. That's a striking coach. Who was the guy that gave Adesanya his belt?
I can't remember.
Andre Galvao. Andre Galvao gave his purple belt. He's a very well-known striker, a very well-known jiu-jitsu guy, right? Very, very, very well respected. He really is a legend. Mm-hmm. So now he kind of has his name though tied to Adesanya. He's like, now Adesanya is a purple belt under Galvao. Do you think there's a chance that maybe Adesanya isn't a purple belt, and that Galvao just wanted his name tied into Adesanya? Maybe he's like, he'll be a purple belt soon enough. Let's just give him it under my name, and that way I can have that.
Specific to Adesanya,
speculation.
It's
speculation, absolutely. But I've heard it is a thing that some guys do.
Specific to him, I would say no.
I heard specifically Paulo Costa's actually was the example that was given. Apparently, he doesn't deserve his black belt, but
specific to Adesanya, I would say probably not. Like, he's displayed high-level jiu-jitsu in fights. Like, he came, not close, but he displayed great jiu-jitsu against Calvin Gastelum. It was a black belt.
That was a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't doubt that
he's a legit purple belt.
I just Googled Andre Galvao, and oh my God, this is the most jacked human being I've ever fucking seen.
Dude, everyone in jiu-jitsu is known to be on roids. Like it's a sport where
the
everyone
SAE.
knows that everyone's on everything.
This man's shoulders are like they're like fucking medieval pauldrons.
Look at all the top BJJ guys in the world. I mean, if you look at fucking, even if you what's his name? Man.
Even like Gordon Ryan is stupid jacked.
Gordon Ryan, if you look at his change from like 1 year into like a year and a half later, he put on like 30 pounds of pure muscle. It's ridiculous. If you look at, I mean, we saw a few weeks ago, what's the guy that got choked out? The insane jiu-jitsu black belt that went to the UFC, got tired, and got choked out.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but I know what you mean.
Like same kind of thing. Insanely jacked guy. They're all on something. On the as Rogan would say, they're all on the Mexican supplements.
They're all getting their alpha brain.
Their alpha brain for sure. And yes, let's keep it at that. Dominic Cruz made his comeback. Got his first win in over 4 years, taking on Casey Kenny, who is a very high-level guy. I thought that we were all surprised that he took on Casey Kenny, because this is a guy who had a real chance to beat him, real top level, and didn't give him a ton of name value. And yet Dom had a very nice, honestly, dominant win. It was a bit of a clinic.
Yeah, he came in there and struck the way that he's been known to strike, which is always fun to watch. Always great to see him just sliding around all over the place, hitting these weird combos.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, Noah.
Like throwing his whole body to the floor and then like throwing his whole, like, it's insane.
Noah, can I just pause you for a second? Because I didn't actually read the notes on this. And whoever wrote this, I love you, but I hate you. The very first comment in the notes audience is, wow, Dom really shines with a legitimate ref.
Well, I mean, what do you know? He did shine. He had his moment in the sun last night. And it was, I think he took this fight because, Dom he's a fan of fighting, and I think even though he knows it wasn't the biggest name recognition fight, he knew it was a tough fight. He knew it was a big, in terms of for himself, knowing what kind of a fighter he is, because Casey Kenny has looked phenomenal his last few fights, antics outside of the octagon aside. He's phenomenal in there, and he did look great last night, like he just belonged in there. But Dom was just, it was a classic Dominic Cruz performance. He really impressed me because I didn't necessarily expect him to win this fight. Holy shit, Dominic Cruz. He's here. He's here to stay.
It's exciting because, since I'm since I'm fairly new to the sport, I haven't seen Dom compete a lot, and so getting him to fight now is like such a treat. And he's another guy that's he's older, but he still is there 100%.
I mean, they said he's 35, but as a fighter for 35, while he's taken a lot of body damage, he hasn't taken a lot of brain damage, because while he's been around for a long time, he's taken such long layoffs that he hasn't been taking a lot of headshots, which is kind of good for the longevity of his career. He might actually have a shot. Who do you guys want to see him against next? I think maybe a fun one is, as we mentioned earlier, Jose Aldo.
That'd be a great matchup. The only thing I was going to say is that in his, obviously in his post-fight speech, there was the whole thing with Monster. But that aside, I didn't really see a big desire in him to want to compete at the highest level. You don't have to call out somebody every time you win, but there was just part of his character in his post-fight speech that kind of made me seem that he'll stick around, but he doesn't have that drive to fight for the title right now.
I think he might also realize he's not quite ready for that yet, because I think part of it is he sees how crowded that division is, and I mean, I think if he really wasn't looking to fight for the title, he wouldn't have fought Casey Kenny. Right? The only reason you fight a guy like Casey Kenny is because you're okay, I'm trying to show the UFC I'm willing to take anyone, and I'm going to keep on fighting, and I'm going to work my way there. If he's trying to go like Dan Hardy and be a and go like just go in for those big names. Like I'll come back for Nick Diaz. I'll come back for Matt Brown, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then he wouldn't be taking on Casey Kenny.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, also, you say it like it was like not his choice to take on Casey, but Casey Kenny was coming off of 3 very, very good wins. I think he deserved to crack into that top 15.
That's my point. So, that's my point, though. It's a guy where he's very good. Is that there is high risk because he has a good chance of beating Dom, but Dom doesn't get the recognition if he beats him. The only people he gets the recognition from are the hardcores and the UFC brass, and those are the ones who are going to get you the title shot.
Right.
He's not looking for just the names.
But I think I wouldn't read too, like, I think that he's pretty on the nose with the way that he thinks rather than calling someone out. I think he really is just the kind of guy who's like, I'll let the night, speak for itself.
Yeah.
And then, I will think about the next steps later, which is the smart thing to do, realistically, especially if you're not like, you're not making like a big call out. Which, to be fair, he did make a pretty fun call out later on.
Why don't you give a breakdown of what that was? Why don't you break that down?
One little break. Okay, so as we may know, Dominic Cruz had a very weird kind of disjointed thing where he was yelling about some fucking Hans Moleman guy or some shit from Monster. And so I looked into it. I did a little bit of reading, a little bit of research, and what we found over at the Smesh Labs, and where our research division is. So there's this guy. He's Monster's, the guy from Monster who sponsors the fighters, who deals with the fighters, who is with them personally. Hans Moleman, and he basically is on Instagram, and he's considers himself, I guess, a bit of an influencer, and he
no. He calls himself the influencer of influencers.
Oh, okay. So he definitely considers himself to be a bit of an influencer.
Yeah.
What a fucking douchey thing to call yourself.
Word for word, he calls himself that.
So he basically takes videos and pictures with fighters, and he's always up, hanging out with fighters and posting about it publicly. And apparently, what Dom is alleging is that he's not friends with any of these fighters. These fighters don't want to spend any time with him. They have to spend time with him, or else they're going to lose their sponsorships. He is essentially accusing him of holding fighters' sponsorships hostage unless they promote him on social media or allow him to promote himself, thus improving his social media following, thus, giving him more lucrative opportunities in the future. So he's really a leech, if you think about it, a parasite, if you will, off the back of these fighters. So I think that Dom's call out is extremely funny. I really liked it. I really liked how quickly they cut him off. I've never seen a fighter get cut off. And they clearly told Joe to wrap it up because Joe said some shit like, "Oh, let's not get political here." And then Dom says the funniest thing I have ever heard. "This isn't political, Joe. This is Monster Energy drink." Fucking killed me. And then he's gone. They wiped him away. And Dana was not happy about it in the post-fight. Clearly, he was just like, "Oh, Monster's been very good to us, and you don't have to like the guy personally. Blah blah blah. This that." Listen, this charity fight, it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen.
No, of course
not.
But
I think that was a hilarious moment that I paid attention to. I hear you, Dom. And fuck Mole Man. Fuck Hans. Sounds like a dick.
Okay, well, on that note, unless they have anything to add to that, Adam?
No, not much to add.
No, I think Noah took it over. Well, this is my favorite fight of the night. What I was most entertained by this fight, and that was Kai Kara France. Who's the guy that he fought? Bit of a weirder name. I don't know this guy's name. Rogerio Bontorin. So he takes on Rogerio Bontorin. Bontorin has insane jiu-jitsu. Bontorin takes him down, 30 seconds into the fight. Kai Kara France clearly has a slight advantage on the feet, but not a huge advantage on the feet. Bontorin has a huge advantage on the ground and gets into the ground really early, has Kara France's back the whole time. I mean, this isn't saying much, but Joe Rogan and DC yelled, "Oh, he's got him, it's over," like 4 or 5 times at least during that round. It was 4 solid minutes of control time with his back, about to choke him out. With about 20 seconds left, Kara France gets the separation and flatlines him. He knocked him with an overhand right into that left uppercut. into another overhand right, and he went face first into the canvas, and Carl Franz ran off in celebration. There's a bit of confusion because Herb Dean didn't actually do the waving off sign. He did grab Carl Franz, which to me says it's over.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of a confusion as to if he actually stopped
it was
the fight.
the timer kept going, the round end bell went off.
But I think they should have said it was over because the second Herb Dean pulls a fighter off, that means it's done.
Well, he didn't pull him off. Kai Franz stopped it himself.
No, he stopped, but he grabbed his
he
weight.
hit him with the classic Hunter one punch.
Yeah, he walked away, but while he walked away, but if you watch the replay, Herb Dean grabbed Carl Franz. Put his hands on Kai Franz. And because he did that, I say it's over.
You know what this reminded me of? Another Herb Dean recent incident. I don't remember who it was that was fighting, but that WMMA belt where the one woman got knocked out, and basically Herb kind of tripped over the fighters, and it was a whole bunch of fuckery. And then Herb Dean has done some questionable things. He's a good ref altogether, and I'm not going to go and openly criticize a ref because I don't know what the fuck it is that's happening in there really next to them. But I don't know. From my view, a little questionable, a little slow on the draw there. That was a one puncher. He was out. That was it.
All right. Well, I'll send you guys the video. In fact, maybe I don't think we can put it up necessarily on the actual podcast, but I'll send you guys the video, and you guys will see very clearly Herb Dean does in fact touch Kai Franz as he's running away, which to me says the fight is over because, again, he's preventing him in a way from attacking his downed opponent, which that means the referee had to intervene. Mm-hmm. So if you watch this video, Carl Franz puts his hand up, then Herb Dean pushes him, moves him off, and then it ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it's a perfectly good stoppage. I know people are getting pissed at Herb Dean. I actually think this was a perfectly fine one. I think it was clear enough. Maybe he didn't do the "it's done" simple, but by taking the fighter off, by pushing away the fighter, that shows.
Yeah, that's clear cut. But someone didn't stop that clock, and they really wanted to show off their new DraftKings clock.
Who is it most important that knows that the fight's over? And that's Kai Franz, and he knew it was over because he was pulled off.
Yeah.
So he stopped fighting. I think it was fine. Great comeback.
Damn good.
Another great light fight. So another 125er was Joseph Benavidez coming back after those two straight horrible losses to Davison Figueiredo, the current champion. And he took another loss, his third loss in a row against Askar Askarov, the deaf Dagestani fighter, which is actually really, really cool. He actually has a gold medal at the Deaf Olympics. From I don't know what year, to be honest, but he has a gold medal in wrestling from the Deaf Olympics. And he showed that off against Benavidez. He had some high amplitude takedowns. Benavidez just doesn't have it anymore, I think the game has caught up to him. Askar's jabs were cutting his face open. That left eye was swollen shut, and he was just being punched or dragged everywhere he went.
Yeah, he wasn't able to control it at all or dictate the fight in any way, and so I'm not really sure what you do with him. Dana in the post-fight presser said, maybe we'll keep him around. I think he was sort of leaning towards that, but
yeah, he was. He didn't.
Has he always been this stiff? He looks very stiff to me. He's absolutely declined in his old age.
It's the style. This is I think the way that fighting has progressed. The way guys used to fight, and DC even said this. They stood, and then they would wing big punches and just go speed, just fly at you. Mm-hmm. And DC said, everyone used to just throw hooks and they used to land. But nowadays, guys are a lot sharper. They throw straight punches. They're faster. They're more defensively responsible. And that style just doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It's nothing against Joey B. He's just a fighter of the 2010s, not a fighter of the 2020s.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But great win for Askarov. He's the guy's spectacular. What can you say? He did a great job. Benavidez, I don't know where he goes from here. It's up in the air. But Dana didn't. Yeah, they asked him straight up, if he's going to have that conversation with him, and they said it in the context of JDS and Overeem. So clearly, the implication there is he getting cut? So. But I don't know if Dana would answer that straight up.
No, he said no. He said no, and this is the reason.
He did say no, but
this is the reason why. No, he said he'll say I'll think about it. I don't know yet. We'll have to have a conversation and figure it out. But he said no, and I think the reason why is because the 125 is still a little bit light, but they're really trying to build it up. They have this champion that they like in Figueiredo. They know they have this great rematch with Moreno. People know Figueiredo and like him. They want to sell him, but they got to build a division. And what better way than to build guys' names off a not so good Joseph Benavidez? Askarov has benefited from it, and we're going to see it again. The one thing I want to say very quickly before we move off of this fight. Askarov, everyone said coming into this fight, if he beats Joseph Benavidez, he gets a title shot. He's undefeated. He has one draw in the UFC, but he has 5 wins or so in the UFC. Really, really high level fighter. We saw it last night against Joseph Benavidez, but there's one asterisk beside the entire performance, and that is he weighed in at 127 pounds. He missed weight, but he didn't just miss weight. He made the 126 extra 1 pound allowance weight, which really puts into question, can he make 125? That's a 2 pound difference. And there's a question as to whether or not they give him that fight against the winner of Figueiredo Moreno 2. If he can't necessarily make weight, this might force him to take one extra fight just to get to prove that he can get his weight on track and fight at a better weight before they give him the fight. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. If this is the only time that he's gone overweight, then I would be totally all right with giving him the title fight after the Moreno rematch. But if it is a consistent issue, then I guess make sure he can make it to at least 126.
Mm-hmm.
Very
looking at the rest, he hasn't missed weight before.
Well,
the other thing that I was
gonna
say was I think you could match Joey B up with Brandon Royval. I think that'd be a fun fight. 2 guys that are both extremely good on the ground. I think that'd be interesting and maybe a fight that would make a little bit more sense for both guys.
Yeah, by the way, so Askarov, he's 3-0-1, so he has 3 wins and 1 draw in the UFC. So his 3 wins are Tim Elliott, we know how good he is, Alexander Pantoja, and now Joseph Benavidez. You know who his 1 draw is to? Brandon Moreno. Moreno has 2 draws in the UFC.
Something.
Right? So the only person he hasn't beaten is also the only person, at least recently, that the champion hasn't been able to beat outright. And the guy didn't beat either of them. Moreno didn't beat either of them. They tied, which means Askarov is clearly at that level, at that Moreno, Figueiredo kind of tier. I really want to see that fight if he can get his weight in order.
I agree. Right on.
All right. Anything else to mention from last night? We had a ridiculous number of fights, but we covered a lot of fights, to be honest.
I think I got to that woman beating stuff off the bat at the beginning. So I think we've already
it was supposed to be the last thing we covered on our fights, but apparently it was the first. So that's all good though.
So hey, great night last night of fights.
Great night of fights.
The main card did slow down a little bit, but there was enough fuckery that it ended up being entertaining. And I mean, at the end of the day, my heart was like leaping out of my chest in the build up to and lead up to Adesanya and Jan, and through like the first. Through the whole round, the whole fight, my heart was beating out of his chest. So it was a great night, very entertaining, very, very fun. I think that Jan is probably the biggest winner out of the whole night. Jan is the king, and big respect to our Polish powerhouse.
And you know who the biggest loser of the night, by the way?
Is also Jan. But Piotr Jan.
I was actually going to say maybe someone else, because Piotr Jan could have ended worse for Peter Jan, in my opinion. He could have lost outright, and he would not have gotten a rematch. At least this way, Jan loses but gets a rematch. I think who loses even more than him? Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to get the next title shot. He was supposed to fight the winner of this fight, and now there is no winner of this fight to fight. And it's got to wait another 3-4 months. And it may be longer if Aljamain Sterling has to take a while, which he probably does.
Yeah.
That might be another year for Corey.
Leading into our news, I mean, Sandhagen's potential matchup with TJ is thankfully a pretty good alternative.
In the works. So, yes, as you mentioned, TJ and Sandhagen is in the works, and that's an amazing fight. That is honestly probably the best fight at 135 to make, even though there's all these insane matchups you can make. If you wanted to say that what the fight on paper that just is the most fun for me personally to watch, I think it's TJ Sandhagen. That matchup is so nice. Or maybe throw a Sean O'Malley in the mix there. Sean O'Malley Sandhagen would be really interesting as well.
He kick his
do
leg off. Do you want to fucking kill Sean O'Malley here? What are you talking about?
He kick his leg off, and then as he's falling, he'd flying knee him out of the octagon.
That's too big of a jump for him.
Yeah,
personally for me.
But eventually,
one day, let's see. Let's see if O'Malley can't keep himself off of fucking heroin or some shit.
Okay.
That's a real thing. Do you not know that? He was on his show, he was on his podcast, holding his infant daughter, talking about like, I do heroin. I could probably do it. I'm not like a pussy, so I wouldn't get addicted to it or anything.
All right,
and maybe it's one thing to make a joke, but it's another thing to say that while you're holding your fucking infant daughter.
Okay, yeah. Fighters make some questionable decisions. In fact, let's continue that trend of questionable
Speaking of questionable decisions,
135-pound men's division. You know, we're speaking about questionable decisions by 135 former champions. Cody Garbrandt was on a Southwest Airlines flight and decided not only to get himself kicked off the flight for not giving his kid a mask, which, by the way, if you're buying an airplane ticket, you think that they're going to, I can almost guarantee that they have a little box that says, I promise to wear a mask while on this flight when you buy the ticket. So he knew what he was signed up for, gets himself kicked off for not putting a mask on his kid, and then stupidly enough, posted on social media to go tell on himself to the world.
Fucking idiot. How did this man got into the cockpit of the plane? He's like yelling at pilots and shit. He's yelling at flight attendants, people who are just out there
hiding
doing their
the
job.
bathroom from him, dude.
Like, yeah, because he's a fucking angry, emotional little man, and he's gonna fucking try and throw punches at people because he perceives his child as being in some kind of danger.
He is in danger. He's not wearing a mask, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Cody's putting his child in danger.
And then telling on him.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Come on, man. What are you thinking?
Fighters are known to be real good, and responsible, pandemic citizens.
Really taking part in their civic duties. Listen, yes. Cody, no love, more like Cody, no fly list. Ooh. Seriously though, if he ends up on a no-fly list, because a regular bloke would end up on the no-fly list for this and have this year ended up, how much did that fuck with his UFC career? The UFC will weasel him out of it. They will do anything they can to make sure he's not on the no-fly list because he needs to fly to his fights. Mm-hmm. I guess that's but I guess if it's anyone that's not a moneymaker like Cody Garbrandt, they'd say you're fucked. See ya. You can't get to your flights. You got to take a goddamn van there now, I guess.
Unless they have Ali Abdelaziz as a manager.
Cody's just gonna have to. Yeah, he can make fucking magic happen. Cody is going to have to move to like fucking Abu Dhabi if he wants to fight. If he ends up on the no-fly list, fucking guy, get it together. But you just mentioned a very interesting figure, which kind of plays into a different controversy. I don't think that we've had time. Have we mentioned? I don't know if you guys saw it. Just to kind of segue into this a little bit. So Otman Azitar. I don't know how to say his name.
Got reinstated.
Yeah, so there's a fun little video of him with Bilal Muhammad, where he was he went up to him inside the gym, and they like Otman was recording. He's like, "Hey, Otman, what's in the bag, buddy? What's in the bag?" And he's like, "Bag? What the bag? I don't know what you're talking about." He fucking goes into a whole thing. Apparently, someone on his corner claims that the bag of potatoes contained potatoes.
Okay, I believe him.
What here's the thing.
By the way, when he
no
said
one
potatoes,
would say something so stupid if it wasn't true.
No. This is what he meant by potatoes, and I don't know. I'm wondering who will actually pick up on this. What he meant by potatoes was Mexican yams. So the explanation of that joke went right over your head.
Yep.
So testosterone. So when people take like anabolic steroids, the testosterone in anabolic steroids is extracted from Mexican yams. This is a real thing. So when they look at people, when they test them for elevated testosterone levels, one of the things they'll do is they'll actually do genetic testing on the testosterone in their blood or in their body and see if it's human testosterone or Mexican yam testosterone.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
So maybe it was a bag of potatoes or
right
a bag of potato extract.
Very, very cool. That's interesting. God, that's a story to follow. We're gonna have more news about that guy in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
This is actually your premier Atman Zaitar news station. The SmeshCast is actually the Atman Zaitar cast.
Absolutely, but we cover the whole grand scheme, all things Smesh, up to and including the alleged retirement of Khamzat Chimaev.
And unretirement.
Yeah, and unretirement.
And then subsequent unretirement after he was most likely threatened with death by the fucking leader of Chechnya or whatever the fuck.
That the person who unretires Khamzat is Ramzan Kadyrov, one of the, and I will say this publicly on YouTube, I don't give a shit. He is a horrible human being. Yeah. He is a violator of human rights. He is a murderer. This man is a dangerous, scary, horrible human being who has a foothold in that whole region, including a lot of the Dagestani fighters.
Evil man. I mean, listen, if you all you got to do is listen to a few clips of Khabib talking in Russian to really see like the politics and the perspectives of some of the guys from that region. It's repressive as fuck. It's very authoritarian. And yeah, the guy, I actually like, it's kind of a meme, but I have like, it's very believable, but that this guy basically like threatens Khamzat's family and him himself if he says, you need to get us back on the fucking map here.
My lungs are broken. My lungs are broken. Oh, no, they're not broken. The spirit of the Chechen people will lift you up into health.
Yes. And besides, everyone's rooting for you. Your family who lives at this address, your dog who sleeps in this doghouse. Like, there's some fucking shit going on behind the scenes. I think that we all expected that Khamzat was going to be back. You know, I mean, the shit that he was posting, coughing up blood, that's fucked. And I think it's absolutely true, the story that he's just been training while recovering from COVID and going hard, and he's fucking himself over. And I'm no doctor. I don't know what kind of long-term damage there is. We may never see him again. He might be fucked. We don't know. I don't know if this shit's permanent. But, you know, if he is going to be back, which I hope he is, it's going to be a little while.
I hope you're right. I don't want to see him back before the summer. I don't want to see him back, to be honest, in the summer. I think he should be back in the fall or the winter or however long it takes for his body to recover properly. Because if he comes back and he spoils this reputation of his own, just by coming back when he's not ready and gassing out at the first round and collapsing and going to the hospital, it's a disaster.
Yeah, it's bad luck.
Nobody lets us have good things.
But what we do have as a replacement for Khamzat is Belal Muhammad taking on Leon Edwards next week in that main event. I look at this as a bit of a tune-up fight for Leon, as far as that gets in the UFC. There are no real tune-up fights in the UFC. Belal Muhammad is not a tune-up fight in the sense that he's not an easy out for anybody, but
tough night.
Is a guy that Edwards should be able to beat. And so if Edwards is who we think he is, he should be able to relatively convincingly win this fight and get back on that horse. He hasn't fought in 2 years and prep himself for a guy like Colby or Jorge. Yeah. And then he'll be on that number one contender spot.
He's posting pictures of himself. He looks fucking jacked. He looks fucking huge right now.
He's been training for 2 years straight.
Yeah.
He better. Yeah.
Yeah, on paper, it certainly seems that Edwards will get the best of him. But, it's a somewhat exciting matchup. There is potential for an upset, but...
Yeah, I mean, he's a 2.5-to-1 favorite. Bilal's a 2-to-1 underdog. So I actually, to be honest, lean at Leon more than these odds. I would give him a 3-to-1 more than 2-to-1. So I actually think there is some value on Leon at 2-to-1, 2.5-to-1.
I don't know, man. That ring rust is real. We saw it with Connor. It's a real. I think that the odds are good where they are. I think that this is just a really big what if fight for both of them, or not what if, but rather this fight answers questions. Is Belal Muhammad good enough to fight in top 5 and potentially for a title? And is Edwards still there in the top 5, ready to fight for a title? We don't know the answers to these questions yet. So I'm very excited for this, because welterweight, we need to get some movement. We need to get guys fighting each other. We need to get guys who are eager to fight each other. So you know, I'm cautiously optimistic for this year for the welterweights.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, next week is the Canadian week. We got 3 Canadian fighters fighting next week. We got a co-main event. We got Misha Sakurnov fighting Ryan Spann in a co-main event. That'll be a decent fight. I'm not really sure who I lean on that one. To be honest, Misha's not the top talent, but he's pretty okay at lightweight heavyweight. The guy I'm most excited for, the Canadian I'm most excited for, is Gavin Tucker. This man put on a clinic against Billy Quarantillo earlier this year. He's filling in against Dan Ige, filling in for Ryan Hall, and I think like 2.5 weeks notice or something crazy like that. But Gavin he has crazy, slick, smooth boxing. He's got good power. He's got good cardio. He's a fun guy to watch. I'm really excited to watch him fight in this featherweight matchup. And then third of all, we have Charles Jourdain is also fighting at featherweight against Marcelo Rojo. I don't know who this person is. I might be making his UFC debut because he does not have a Google Images picture. Other good names to look out for: Angela Hill will be fighting this weekend, which is she's always a fun fighter to watch. Nasrat Hakparast is fighting this week. He's always fun to watch. Zubaira Tukhugov is fighting again. There's another one of Khabib's teammates. So there are a bunch of guys. If you're a hardcore, there's some names to look out for. You know, Manel Kopp, who's a really, really good flyweight. It's fun to watch. Darren the Dentist Stewart against Eric Anders is a great fight. A lot of good fights to watch here. Keep your eye out on. Maybe not as name loaded as this week's card was, but I mean, you can't ever expect to have a UFC 259 level card every week.
Yep. And listen, how many times has it happened? You know, sometimes the low key cards with the names that you don't know, they've got the people on there who've got the most to gain from doing some crazy shit. So you've just always got to tune in. You got to watch every single fight, every single one.
The early prelims were the best last night. So
yep. 100%. Another very important piece of news that if you will listen to the post-fight press conference, you would know Dana White did not catch any streamers last night, which I know we're all very hurt to hear because, you know, we really expected him to single-handedly take down piracy.
Yeah.
You know,
he let us down.
He's picking up the torch where Metallica failed. And
as a fan,
he lost the battle. He'll win the war.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to add in?
Dan Hardy got fired.
Oh yes, Dan Hardy. So Dan Hardy was supposedly apparently fired by both.
No, it's official. Confirmed. I'm seeing it. If I just Googled UFC and it's actually one of the first things that came up.
BBC and UFC both fired Dan Hardy for apparently getting into an altercation with a UFC employee backstage, not a physical one. Apparently he yelled at a UFC employee, apparently potentially a judge, and that's it. He has lost his job. Unfortunately, I was a really big fan of Hardy as a fighter and as an analyst as well. I really liked him. So it's a really disappointing thing to see.
Dan Hardy has made some tweets in response. He's saying that it's not entirely inaccurate, but it's not it's
misleading.
Like, you know, it's a little misleading, but he does say, I am no longer working directly with the UFC. So there's disagreement over opportunity. It sounds like, from what I've heard from like some pretty less credible sources, just like comments online, the argument may have been specifically with a judge. I'm not sure what exactly happened there, but yeah, this is, let's be clear, it was a verbal confrontation, most that happened. And honestly, says, I mean, like, the quote is judges are shit. So
he said it was a disagreement over an opportunity missed or withheld, and I'd love some answers, but I can't get any. So it sounds like he called someone out for screwing him over on something.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, what happened there? And instead of them answering him, they complained and got him fired.
And we know from recent times, we know that he's willing to confront officials if he feels that the fighter's safety is, at stake. And at the end of the day, there's nothing malicious in here. Like, I commend him for, being concerned with the fighters, and, I don't care about the gracefulness or the unspoken rule or like the, whatever. He thought that he saw something going wrong. I remember specifically when he was fucking pissed at Herb Dean or like called him out for some shit. And I agreed with him, like, and Herb Dean lets shit go on for too long. So, I respect that he's, he is a former fighter. and he looks out for their safety. So
Yep.
big shout out to his YouTube channel. I think it's called something like Full Reptile or some shit, where he where he commentates and gives his perspective on the fights. Big shout out because he's classic.
Buy some
guy.
merch. Buy some Full Reptile merch. Defend your boy, back your boy, Dan Hardy up.
Damn right. Get no more cancel culture, huh? How about that? No one is fired from their job again.
Instead, we're gonna ask everyone who is going to buy SmeshCast merch. Instead, buy yourself some Full Reptile merch this week. Next week, buy.
In fact, just get off the show now. Go to Full Reptile. This is just a plug for him.
I mean, anyway, the show is just about over. I think we can wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Shouts to Full Reptile. And it was a great week. Shouts to Jan Blachowicz for defending his belt. Shouts to Amanda Nunes for remaining the greatest female of all time. Not really sure what to say about shouts to Aljo Sterling. I hope you recover well, and I hope you can get good performance next time. Jan, that was a fuck up. I hope you recover and you're a better guy next time.
Yeah, and you know what? Whatever happened tonight, Max Holloway's fight this year is still the best fight of the year. So sorry, Izzy and Jan. It was great, but wasn't the best fight. I'd say it didn't live up to the immeasurable hype, but it was still great.
And with that being said, we're going to call it a week. My name is Roey. For Noah, for Adam, this has been the SmeshCast. We'll see you guys next week.